Today, we're diving into a topic that might just be the most important financial steps you can take: building an emergency fund. Think of it as your financial safety net, your cushion for those unexpected life hiccups. So let's dive into the steps to build one and figure out how much you would actually need. We're going to start with the basics. So what exactly is an emergency fund? Simply put, it's a stash of money set aside specifically for financial emergencies. Think about those sudden car repairs, medical bills, or even job loss. These are situations where an emergency fund steps in, allowing you to cover the expenses without resorting to credit cards or loans. And remember, it's not meant for vacations or splurging on the latest gadgets. It's your financial shield against the unexpected. So I want to share a story about a client of mine, Mike. Mike's a graphic designer, living a pretty comfortable life. So one day, Mike came to me with a worried look on his face. His car had just broken down, and the repair bill was over $3,000. With no emergency fund, Mike was ready to charge it to his credit card, which could have led to a spiral of debt. But we turned that situation around, and today I'm going to walk you through the game plan that we used to build his emergency fund and how you can do the same. The first thing that we did was we set a goal. Typically, you want to aim for about 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses, but that really depends on your personal situation. If you have a job that you don't have really good job security, or your income varies, or maybe your spouse stays home, you might want to consider having a little bit more than 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in your emergency fund. Want to make sure you realize something. Notice how I said living expenses and not income. For Mike, his monthly expenses were around $3,000. So we set a target between $9,000 and $18,000. You want to calculate your monthly essential expenses and multiply that by the number of months you want your emergency fund to cover. The second step is to break it down. That big number can be pretty intimidating, right? So let's break it down into smaller, more manageable chunks. Mike started with what we called a $1,000 mini emergency fund. This smaller goal is less overwhelming and provides some immediate financial resources while you work towards a larger goal. The third step is automate your savings. One of the best ways to ensure consistent savings is by automating it. So you want to set up a monthly transfer from your checking account into another savings account. For Mike, we set up a $200 transfer from each paycheck. This set it and forget it approach will ensure that you're consistently saving. The fourth step is something that a lot of people really don't want to hear. You want to look for areas in your budget where you can cut back, even if it's just temporarily. So what Mike did was he reduced his spending by eating out less, and he cut back on some of those subscription services that he didn't even know he had anymore. And these small sacrifices, they can really add up over time. The final thing that Mike did was that any extra cash that he received, such as bonuses, tax refunds, or income from freelance gigs, went straight into his emergency fund. This can give your savings a boost and potentially help you reach your goal faster. So fast forward a year and Mike had built a solid $10,000 in his emergency fund. This gave him peace of mind and more control over his finances. So here's a quick recap of what we discussed today. 1. Set a goal. Determine how many months of expenses you need to cover. 2. Break it down. Start with that mini emergency fund and build it up. 3. Automate your savings. Set up automatic transfers to ensure consistent savings. 4. Cut back temporarily. Identify areas where you can reduce your spending. 5. Direct any extra income into your emergency fund. Building an emergency fund takes time and discipline, but it's one of the best financial moves you can make. So here's a challenge for you. Take the first step today. Open an emergency fund and transfer whatever you can spare, even if it's just $10. Start now. You'll be amazed at how these small steps can add up over time.